at 7:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Trustee Garrett.
Present.
Trustee O'Connor.
Here.
Trustee Solomon.
Here.
Vice President Lee.
Here.
And Student Trustee Glasnow.
Here.
Thank you. Item 7, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Yes. Motion to remove items 14C2 and 14C3 from the agenda.
That would be the HKIT Architects ad service and the RFP for the Adult Ed and District Office. Okay. Is there a second on that motion? Seeing as there are no seconds, motion fails. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Garrett.
Aye.
Trustee O'Connor.
No.
Trustee Solomon.
Aye.
Vice President Lee.
Aye. All right. Moving on to the approval of the minutes of March 15th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And reporting out of closed session, the board agreed on a 3-0 vote to approve settlement agreement case number 2021-2022/3. Okay. Are there, let's see, 10 recognitions and commendations? I don't think we have any tonight. So we'll move on to the board report. We'll start down with Trustee Wazano.
Classes for next year. So that's been going on. And then they kind of ran behind schedule, so they went into that this week as well. And then last week, the leadership held a March Madness kind of event where we just held a bunch of block games, so like the students involved. So it's been a slow one.
Garrett?
I don't have much to report, except I'm sorry to have missed the celebration over the weekend for the 100th anniversary. I'm sure it was a great event put on by the committee, and I saw lots of pictures. And I just want to wish everyone a restful spring break, please. Thank you.
We'll jump back to Trustee Abuzarea since he just arrived for the Westmore report.
Everyone, so at Westmore, a couple weeks ago, we had a warm coat drive that concluded, and I think we collected over 150 coats, and the plan is to donate them to one warm coat. And then elections are starting up, and there's been like a couple informational meetings. The candidates have been announced. I believe it was last Friday. There'll be a tabling day for students to learn more about the candidates. The Monday, I think we get back from break. And let's see. Like this weekend for like our Muslim community, Ramadan will be starting. So like when students get back, like when our Muslim students get back, they'll be fasting, which can be a little difficult during school days. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Trustee Achapinti.
Yeah. It's always good to hear school is going along, especially this year. A lot of the conversations we have in school as teachers and with students is, how this year is so different than prior years, but also us setting the stage for what's next. And so it's good to hear that we're looking forward to next year. That said, I wasn't able to make the event this weekend, but also that we're celebrating 100 years of our high school district. And so I'm looking forward to that celebration across our district with all our schools and, of course, with our community. A couple things. One, this week does also celebrate the life of Cesar Chavez and, of course, the United Farm Workers and all who are part of that in terms of the civil rights movement and the human rights movement that we do celebrate, not just nationwide, but internationally. And I want to highlight one thing, too. In all the discussions and meetings we had a lot of discussion around environmental justice and climate justice, and in terms of civil rights and human rights and equity. Cesar Chavez, of course, with people like Philip Veracruz and Dolores Huerta and Larry Leong, who's also celebrated by our state, to recognize the contributions of all of our communities, particularly our Latino community, our Filipino community, and all the communities that represent the United Farm Workers who came together to highlight those gains and needs, not just in labor, but our connection to the land. And so in looking at the garden here at Serramonte Del Rey and many of the inequities in San Mateo County with regards to green space and our need to step up around climate justice, I want to honor the voices of our youth and our community in uplifting those issues. As environmental justice issues are absolutely a part of social justice, and many of the actions taken around the world. Last week, there was a global climate strike hosted by many youth and, of course, community across the world in terms of calling attention to many of the United Nations Millennium Development Goals and just goals that we should be aspiring to as countries and as communities fighting for a healthier planet, especially during a pandemic. And so just to uplift those voices and that this week in our celebration of Sister Chavez's birthday. That said, it is also Women's History Month and looking forward to incorporating our discussions around gender equity in that, and that for our LGBTQ community as well, who have also uplifted those voices, I think, this month in many ways. In ways we can address public education, we should be leaning forward into those discussions as opposed to promoting the status quo. So with that, I don't have anything else at the time, and thank you.
So for me, a couple of things. One, I just really want to thank everyone that had anything to do with the Jefferson High School 100-year celebration. It was fantastic. It was nice to have a community gathering back at Jeff. I'm used to going to one of those a year or two of those a year. And, you know, Martine Kelsch and Reina Meafua, just again, it's not an easy task that they do, but they've done it before, and every time they do it, it's better than the last time they did it. And so this was just an amazing accomplishment. And I also just want to highlight Reina, who I nominated for the San Mateo County Women's Hall of Fame, and she will be inducted. So I'm super excited about that. She's getting the recognition that she deserves for the massive amount of work that she does. I mean, just the parade alone was just an insane accomplishment, a feat. She was like managing the parade, setting up, making sure food was cooked, making sure we're all in our places. So, and then that's on top of the food bank that she runs, on top of Pacific Islands Together, but on top of the vaccination clinics and testing clinics that she's run out of the Bayshore site, on top of the Christmas giveaway and the back to school giveaway that she organizes and does, on top of running the food for football games and doing the fundraiser for that. I mean, and then she also has a job where she works for the district. So it's incredible what she does for this district and how big her heart is. And I'm really, and she's really silent about it. She doesn't really look for recognition, but I'm really happy that she's getting the recognition that she so deserves. And she belongs in that Women's Hall of Fame. So her and Manufo, so two Pacific Island women together being inducted is fantastic. And I also, just in talking about the climate and climate justice, I am part of the Leadership Council of San Mateo County, just going through that training. And one of the interesting tidbits that I learned is that 60% of San Mateo County's workforce drives in here. 60%. So when you're talking about the environment, you know, one of the biggest detriment to the environment is cars and how much commuter traffic there is. So one of the ways we can eliminate that is by building homes and allowing people to work where they live. So wouldn't it be amazing if there was a project where we're building homes and doubling the size of green space that would help tackle climate justice? So I'm very proud of what we're doing in this district, and I think when we're really talking about, you know, real things that do lots of damage to the environment, and looking at gas prices right now and what you have to do to get gas, and on top of that, what driving cars does to the environment. One of the ways that we can really help our environment is for people to drive less. And then last, I also want to say, I grew up, my parents were Muslim. I grew up Muslim. I went to a Muslim private school for my elementary school career, and then switched in middle school and high school to a public school. And the biggest transition for me was the month of Ramadan, because to have a school that accommodated me during the month of Ramadan and where everyone wasn't eating, to going to a school where everyone was eating lunch, and then when you're not eating lunch, thinking that everyone's so kind and they think that you just don't have lunch and they put food in front of you, or PE, and then participating in PE but not being able to drink water, was really hard, especially when Ramadan happens after the time change and the day is longer. So anything that we can do to educate our teachers and staff and to alert them to what's happening and to making accommodations for students, I think would be fantastic. And then the last thing I want to say is I went to the Student Advisory Committee meeting yesterday, where all of our teachers and staff, thank you all who came out that were working on our ethnic studies program, came out to talk to the Student Advisory Committee and to get feedback on what they would like to see for the program and what they would like to see in the curriculum, and just answer some questions. So it was really great. I was glad to get a little preview of it. I mean, the students got more information than the board in that area. So it was really nice to get a preview and see all the good work that's happening, and I'm excited to when they come and present that to the board.
Trustee Shaw, we'll jump back to you. Anything to report out?
So over the weekend, Jefferson held our centennial celebration, which had a very good turnout, and we were able to celebrate many generations of Jefferson alumni as well as current students and staff, and we were able to also see a variety of performances, and it was a very good opportunity for all our clubs and local businesses to fundraise. Yeah, that's what's been going on at Jefferson.
Yeah, that was a fantastic event. That was just a lot of fun to be out there from the parade on through the different performances and the various speeches and all the booths. It was really just wonderful to be able to spend the day with the Jefferson community and then the larger JHSD community coming out to celebrate alongside. So that was really a lot of fun. And frankly, how can an event go wrong when you have that big, giant shopping cart hot rod, right? So I will not name the business because we're not here to promote a certain business here, but we all know which shopping cart that was.
Everybody in Daly City knows.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Really cool.
That was very cool. So, and he was driving from the child seat too, go figure. So, I mean, he was. So, but it was great. I mean, the whole event was just fantastic. So thank you so much to the committee that put everything together. I know how much work, blood, sweat, and tears went into all of that to pull that off. And it was just a fantastic day. Wonderful to be able to celebrate. And I'm so glad that we're in a place where we can do that right now. So, Ms. Presta.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to echo the sentiments about Saturday's 100th anniversary celebration. It was super fun, actually. It's really, really fun. And County Superintendent Nancy McGee rode in the parade in our car, and she was just beside herself. She was thrilled. She's like, "This is the most fun I've had in this position." It was very funny, and it was just a lot of fun. And I just can't even imagine the work that went into it. I can't even imagine pulling that all together, and it was terrific. So thank you. I want to say a couple of things about Senior X at Oceana was last week. Much of the district office staff was there, judging and observing and all of that, and I was, as I always am, just so very impressed. I brought my mom because she was staying with me for the week, and she was a former principal and teacher and associate superintendent herself. And she was like, "I cannot believe that this is high school students." And I said, "Yep." So that was great. So thank you to Oceana. let's see, I also want to give a little shout out to Mr. Warden and the Educational Housing Corporation and Ms. Van Raphorst. They conducted the lottery for the employee staff housing, and it's very exciting. There's just a lot of excitement. What I learned today from Mr. Warden is that after the lottery, even more of our employees like sort of were talking about getting in, and now we have even more employees who are interested. So, and then we've also got we've got still quite a few that we will have for our new staff. So that's super exciting. And it looks like we are on schedule for a May opening, people to move in at the beginning of May. May 13th is the correct date for, is it the third? The ceremony is May 13th. And so we're really looking forward to that. And what else? Spring break is next week. So the students and the teachers, the school staff will be gone. Many of us here at the district office will be here, but not all of us. So it'll be kind of a catch-up week for some of us. And I just want to remind everybody that we do have COVID tests that will have either gone home already or will go home before the end of the week for all staff and students. And we ask that everyone test on the Sunday before returning and then again on Wednesday. And we are going to be sending home instructions and reminders over the break so that people do that, and just to keep us all safe. Yeah, just to shout out again, the ethnic studies presentation was great. Can't wait for everybody to hear more and more about it. I really want to thank them for reaching out and asking the students for their input. It was a really good presentation, and I'm very proud of our staff. That's it for me.
Great. AFT report, Ms. Chasey.
Good evening. How y'all doing? So I have a few things. Some of them are the same. So Senior X at Oceana, I was an evaluator for 4 of them, and I think I saw 5. And I could have been there for another day. I mean, there were so many interesting topics to hear about, and the students did so well. It was really, really fun to learn. To hear, their counter arguments to their own position. So they had to argue against themselves and then say why they, but they did a great job. It was fabulous. So that was really exciting. I've been substituting a little bit here and there, like one period here and there. It's so fabulous to be on campuses with students. And, you're the reason why we're here. So it's really nice to be able to do that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the housing. So I have a student who was my student when I was a principal, then became my student when I was teaching again in my homeroom, and then became an employee, and then I just saw him at the 100-year Jefferson party, and he said, I got into the housing. So it was so exciting to see that full circle. And, I was really proud that he's working here and that he went for it, and got in. So that was fun to see that. I don't know what that is. So from the CFT level, so we're AFT and we're a local, that's what we call ourselves. And then above us is CFT, California. We don't call ourselves California Federation of Teachers. We call ourselves a union of professionals and classified personnel because we represent nurses, faculty at the community college level, classified here. So we had a leadership conference and we were all together and it was fabulous. So I brought a classified person and then I went as a certificated person, and there were all sorts of interesting workshops to look at and see. The The overarching topic was organizing around racial and social justice. And, you know, it was really interesting, the topics that we listened to and heard about. So we'll be bringing those back to our meetings and talking about them. In addition to that, there's something called Division Council, where we talk about issues throughout the state. So I'm on the ECTK, so Early Childhood TK, which is Transitional Kindergarten through 12th grade council. And so all the presidents, there's probably 50 of us that were in the room, you know, talk about issues that we're having. Everybody's having the same issue. It keeps going. We're lacking substitutes. We're lacking, you know, staff, bus drivers, people, you know, we need more people. So we need more people. And it's up and down the state. So it's really difficult when we have to try and get somebody with our salaries, and then, you know, just a few miles down the peninsula, they make so much more. But people that do work here are saying, we're happy to work here because it's like a family, because people care, because, you know, it's comfortable, and I like the people I work with. So, you know, you have to weigh your pros and cons, of course. Let's see, what else was I going to talk about? And then there's state council, which is about the whole state, and it's including everybody, like I said. So nurses and classified and community colleges. So we hear all sorts of issues from all around. So that's about it. I'm really happy to start my spring break a little early tomorrow.
Have fun. All right, moving on to consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve consent?
Before we approve consent, I just would like to say we have a lot of really amazing teachers and staff that are turning in their notice in this consent agenda. So I would just like again to call out, Sacramento Bee put out a really great article that talks about how teachers' pay and staff pay has not kept up with inflation, and really goes into that, you know, salaries have gone up 1.6% in the state while inflation has rose by 5%. And it has a fantastic chart that lists average teacher pay, and it has 71 pages of schools and their average salary. We're on page 42. We're on page 42. And then on one of the other parts of the chart, it says the years to buy a typical home in the district. So for most of the school districts that have average pay at the same as ours, which is a fantastic chart to look at that, you know, it's 7, it's 4, it's 12, it's 11, you know, numbers like that. For us, it's 22 years. What do we do about, like, you know, I hear people that criticize us for the path that we've taken to raise funds. Fine. Tell me another way to do this, because we cannot stay on page 42 of this list. When I listen to students, when I listen to staff talk to me about the things that they would like in their district, in this district, we can't do that if we don't have the means to financially provide for it. And it hurts my heart to see some fantastic staff leave. And we know why they're leaving. I mean, you shouldn't have to sacrifice to educate our future. It shouldn't be a sacrifice. So this is why I'm passionate about what I do. This is why I continue to fight for the things that I fight for, because this list and where we are on this list is unconscionable. So I just wanted to say that before we.
Is there a motion to approve consent? Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. Public comment? Is there any public comment this
I
evening?
don't have any cards.
Okay, great. And we will move on to our action items. Item 14A1, approval of the A through G completion Improvement Grant.
Vice President Lee, good evening, members of the board. Before you is the A through G Completion Improvement Grant that was presented to you on March 15th. This plan outlined how the district planned to spend the approximately $609,000. It has been allocated to help improve the A through G rates of students. So I recommend that this plan is approved.
Move to approve the plan.
Okay.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Item 14B1, job description update, school psychologist, Ms. Lujan.
Good evening, everyone. What you have before you is a small update to the school psychologist job description. It only captures requirements, changes in credentialing requirements. A very small update, but definitely necessary to recruit the right individuals.
Motion to approve of this update to the school psychologist job description.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. 14C1, CalShape Grant Agreement and Resolution 2021-22/17, Ms. Van Raphorst.
Good evening, Vice President Lee and members of the board. At our January 25th meeting, you may recall that the board approved an agreement with LifeWings to help us apply for AB 841 grant funds, which are a California Healthy Air initiative. So the agreement before you tonight and the accompanying resolution are a result of that grant application. We have been awarded the amount we applied for, which is over $350,000. That will cover the installation of CO2 sensors, new medical grade MERV HVAC filters, and a complete HVAC systems audit for all of our Daly City schools. The Pacifica schools will also get the same things, but through our bond funds. And so provided that this agreement and resolution is passed tonight, we'll be able to begin work in the next few months.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I just want to say, it's not easy to get grants. So thank you, guys.
All right. Item 14C2, HKIT Architects Additional Service District Office Lobby Redesign. Ms. Van Raphorst.
Thank you again, Vice President Lee. Back on August 18th, 2020, the board approved a contract with HKIT Architects to design a new district office building and new adult education building. The plans for these buildings are complete and have already been submitted to DSA for approval. However, during a recent review of the plans by Executive Cabinet, we noticed that the public entryway to the district offices and the boardroom was a narrow hallway. We worked with HKIT to see if there was a way to make this area more inviting to the public as they enter. And HKIT proposed a solution that backs up a bank of restrooms to open up the entryway. The change in the construction documents is estimated to cost $80,000 or $80,654, which would be paid out of bond funds. And I see this as a small investment in a big project to make sure we have a building that is welcoming to the public. So I recommend the approval of this additional service for HKIT to move forward with the plan revisions.
Before I call for a vote, just a reminder that any questions and discussion this evening with regards to this should be about whether we will approve the $80,654 change order and any comments specific to perhaps even the design that's presented in the document. So let's make sure that any comments or questions are specific to this item and not a platform for perhaps a perspective, a certain perspective that we are anticipating, quite frankly. So Mr. Achapinti, I see you had your hand up.
Yeah, that was a strange introduction, Acting President Lee, given that you gave the floor to other trustees to speak on things that weren't even on the agenda tonight. So the first question I would have is, one, I asked to remove this item because the district office in that project, from what we know from prior meetings, has had literally zero public input from anybody outside the city of Daly City. So my first question would be, who has had input on these additional renderings in the entirety of the planning of this process?
So I would first like to point out that there was the typical public input process followed. We followed all of the standard rules for construction by publicizing our meetings as well as the initial study mitigated negative declaration process, which is typical for these projects. And as far as input into this change, Executive Cabinet worked with HKIT, and the drawings were shared with the board. The renderings were shared with the board.
So you're saying that the Executive Cabinet and HKIT are presenting these to us for approval tonight, but nobody in the community has seen these prior to tonight's meeting?
The drawings of this specific little entryway have been published with the board agenda, and that is the way that the public would have had access to them. But the overall development, we had many meetings of the entire adult school and district office staff, and again, we followed the typical process for the initial study mitigated negative declaration.
I see. In my experience, and I do have some experience in urban planning, the process that we followed is not typical of many cities or school districts, so I'll dispute that. But one of the things that we requested in preparation for what you just mentioned, the mitigated negative declaration, was a request for a full environmental impact report, which I put out the day that the MND was moved forward without any input as well. So I want to clarify for the community who have not had input on Westmore Park and anything happening to it, including this district office redesign. As Acting President Lee has pointed out, the $80,654 improvements to this have had zero input from the community on a project that originally had zero input from the community, which in my experience is not typical or equitable. So I just want to make sure that's understood before we vote on anything. Secondly,
Question, because can we just break it up? So
can we just what?
I don't know if that's understood, because if you're not, we had input from, are you not counting our own staff as community?
No, actually, I asked that question. You didn't. The last meeting we referred to this. I asked who had input on these designs, and I was told that people working with the adult school and district office were allowed to. They conducted some kind of conversations with people in our adult school, but there was no formal input that any board member here has ever seen. I certainly haven't seen it, and I haven't heard it from any of our staff and community, except for opposition to some of the things going on around this entire project. And none of that input has been included here. So that's why I asked what input has been included. And if you're telling me there's been no input from the community, I don't see how we can vote on an item that has to do with the project that has had literally zero input from our community.
So let me just jump in for a second. Since you do have urban design experience, evidently.
Yeah.
Therefore, you would also know that typically when a client has a building designed, the input typically comes from the people who will be using the building. So in this case, it would be the district office staff, it would be the teachers and staff in adult education. So to that extent, this building is designed with the end user in mind. So I would imagine you would understand that as an urban design specialist.
Well, I have a minor, so I would call myself a specialist. An urban design specialist, as you know, would probably have a degree or an advanced degree. I have a minor in urban planning from San Francisco State. What little I do know, and to the extent of what I know, does begin and end with the community. Our client, as a public high school board, is to serve the public, in the public interest. The client being Westmore Park and that community, including people and our students who go to Westmore High School and live in that community, are from this community. That is our first and last client involved. Secondly, our school district and our staff who work here should be allowed to have input in concert with our community, not in division or in opposition to them, because we're being told that this project has to move through, which is not the case, should not be the case. So that's the clarification on the question that Trustee Salahudin asked. Do you have any other clarification on that? Or?
Yeah, no, I think the clarification is that I've heard from many staff who work here, all the staff who work here were involved and gave input into their future home. And they, for me, when I talk about who I serve as a board member, when I say community, I include the people who work here as part of the community and my constituents who I represent, many of them who live here in the district. So they were all involved in giving feedback and input into this project.
And it would also make perfect sense that these individuals would know what is best for the students of the community, because they're the ones doing the work currently in this building, which we all agree is insufficient to meet the needs of the students that are here, as well as it's insufficient to meet the needs of the staff who are currently working here.
Especially the classrooms. I know one of the things that I think is really cool is that one of the classrooms, for the our adult students who are in special education, that they'll have a place on site where they can go and get job training skills. And I know the teachers and staff had a huge amount of input into that room. Also, just accessibility and being able to move around. If you go here, like from the bathrooms to the classroom, like none of this really works for our students, especially those that have a variety of different challenges, both physically and mentally. So they really put a lot of thought process into like, how do we design the rooms so that it's very comfortable for them, et cetera. So I know they had a lot of feedback into
And looking into the redesign of the images, it's very clear, and given Ms. Van Rapport's description, that it's also thinking about the public in mind, because it is creating an entryway that is actually going to be better accessible for the
looks
public.
really nice, yeah.
President Lee, I would say that you completely missed what I was saying, is that Westmore Park is a public park, and you're building an office park onto a public park without any community input.
Well, there'll still be a park there.
No,
Yeah.
you're planning to bulldoze all the trees
No,
and
we're not.
playgrounds
No,
on
no,
the park.
no, that's not
That
true.
is true.
And
Have you seen anything in
what
writing
we are
to the
discussing is actually not about Westmore Park specifically. At this point, we're discussing the change order.
This
So is there a motion
This
to
is at
approve
Westmore
that
Park.
change
No, that's
order?
misleading. This is at
Is there-
Westmore Park.
I
Please
understand.
don't provide misinformation to the public.
Actually, I believe that might be in your purview, Mr. Archer.
But I
This
think-
building is being built at Westmore Park.
Is there a motion?
Motion to table this item to a
Yes,
future
Mr.
meeting.
Abazarea.
Oh, I just have a question. Is the $80,000 for like strictly the lobby redesign?
Correct.
Wait, has construction started?
No.
Wait, I'm not sure if this is like a dumb question, but like, why do we have to pay for the redesign if construction hasn't started?
That is a good question. Because the plans have already been completed with the smaller lobby, with the narrow hallway. And so this is how much it costs just to redo the plans. Because they have to change where the plumbing is and where the electrical is and, all the different parts on the plans. So that's what the redesign is, why it costs, because the plans had already been completed.
That is an excellent question. $80,000 of public bond money to redesign a plan that has already been designed once without community input is definitely a question that should be raised. Thank you for raising it.
So is there a motion to approve the change order?
There was a motion to table this item.
Oh, okay, all right, I'm sorry, there's, all right. Is there a second on that motion to table? Seeing as there is no second, motion fails. Is there a motion to approve the change order?
Second.
All those actually, let's do a roll call vote, please, Ms. Johnson.
Aye.
No.
Salahuddin?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to item 14C3, request for qualifications and proposals for lease-leaseback construction services, for adult education and district office project. Ms. Van Raphorst once again.
Thank you again, President Lee, or Vice President Lee, sorry. For my last item tonight, I bring you a request for qualifications and proposals for construction services for the adult education and district office project. You may recall that on February 15th, at the board meeting, Lauren Charneski from the law firm of DWK provided the board with a presentation about leaseback, which is a method of construction, and the board voted to move forward with this construction method. So this RFP before you tonight allows the district to solicit construction firms who can deliver the project in this manner. I'm excited about this process because it allows us to use best value selection method and minimizes the risks of cost overruns. So once the RFP is approved, it will be released for potential contractors to respond. There's no financial impact at this time, and once the contractor is selected through the RFP process, a contract price would be negotiated, and that contract would come to the board for approval separately. So at this time, I recommend that the board approve the RFP for construction services.
Having looked at the document, it's pretty clear, it's pretty comprehensive, covers pretty much every possible situation that we could have, and it'll be interesting to see which firms do ultimately respond to the RFP.
Ms. Charneski from DWK did help us with the the RFP.
Mr. Archipinti, had a comment or question related to this RFP, RFQ?
Yeah, similar to the prior item, I will ask why we are continually raising items to our agenda that fast-track this process without public input. Has there been any public input on this item prior to tonight?
The public has an opportunity to provide input at this time.
That is clear. However, if we're moving with a project that's being fast-tracked in our community, again, without any other regard to community input and how we should proceed with fair labor and business practices, where lease-leaseback agreements are clearly allowing districts to avoid competitive bidding, I would suggest that our district not move forward with this because it is not right for public high school districts or public education, and consider the equity and the integrity and the ethics involved in pursuing this kind of business strategy to promote a real estate development.
So as Ms. Chernesky explained in the meeting on February 15th, this does not bypass any legal requirements, and it does not bypass any statutory requirements that the district has. It's a completely legal process that is used by many school districts around the state.
And we at the February 15th meeting did approve this methodology. So is there a motion to approve this?
Just a point of clarification, I did not approve of this. I voted no.
Okay, we know.
Public should know. Just to clarify your comment. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All those, roll call vote, please.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Item 15, consideration of future agenda items. Yes, Mr. Archipinti.
Yeah, I'd like to see maybe any of the future agenda items that myself and other board members have asked to be considered at our board meetings this entire year. One of them is for interpreters, translators, and other means of communication to provide access to our multilingual international community. In additional items that I brought up, I would like to see those on the agenda before the close of our school year, which will end in late May. Given that graduation is in late May, we really only have less than a handful of meetings. So while we are seeing continued push around this real estate project, I feel like it's completely inequitable to be leaving behind many important issues in our district that need to be addressed before the close of the school year at the very least.
If you look at the agenda planning, your stuff is, you have stuff that's coming up in the next meeting.
Yeah, I've heard that all year. I would like to see it on the agenda. I will see it when I believe it. I'll believe when I see it.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at the agenda planning doc, I've
Yeah.
never seen if that is emailed to all the board that we all have access to on the drive.
Yeah.
That it's in there. It hasn't.
Some stuff is in
Just so
there.
I can finish my sentence. That if you look at the doc, usually I've never seen them put something in there and have it change. So it's in there. So it's coming.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm aware of that. My comment is because we continually see these items pop up and take precedent and priority over issues that have been raised since August. It is March. So if you're talking about calendars, I'm well aware what day it is, what month it is on the calendar. It is 2022, and we have many issues that need to be addressed that have not been addressed and not prioritized, and that is intentional. That needs to be addressed.
I hear your point. I was just
Yes.
answering the.
Understood.
Oh.
Understood.
I will believe when I see it, so that's my comment. Thank
Fair
you.
enough, fair enough. All right. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 7:45 PM.